Okay, it is now 6:30. Flag is back. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic and one nation under God, indivisible. Okay. Have that everyone is present and accounted for. I don't know who Barbara sent the text to, but she's out waving sign with her husband.
I figured she was, she didn't send me a text.
So. And I just got it with like in the last half hour. She said
Okay.
she didn't think she was gonna get here in time,
Yeah, I didn't think she.
so. Minutes of the October 18th meeting.
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. Is there any comments, corrections? Addition? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes from October 18th are approved. We will now move to public comment. Does anybody want to comment? Who's in the public? I would step right up and have a seat or
Thank you.
stand if you're more comfortable.
Either way,
Okay.
what do you usually used to? I'll see.
We should.
Hi, you actually have, I'm gonna read a short thing here. You have a copy of it. I'm Pat DeVito, president of Old Saybrook Rotary. Along with me is Alan Schwartz, who's the president-elect, so he'll be taking over for me after this year. Old Saybrook Rotary supports the community in many ways. We provide scholarships to deserving graduating high school students with to help with college costs. We support the summer concert series here in Old Saybrook as the primary sponsor. We deliver Meals on Wheels each week. We conduct the dictionary project for third graders. We support the DARE and HEAP programs here in town, as well as supporting the estuary and much more. We conduct several fundraisers during the year to support these activities within the Old Saybrook community. Last year, our major fundraising activity, the wine tasting and silent auction, typically held at Saybrook Point and Marina, unfortunately needed to be canceled due to COVID-19 pandemic, like lots of other things. That substantially limited our revenue to support the community projects that we do in Old Saybrook. This year, we were able to have our spring event this year on May 6th. It was quite successful, was very well attended. After expenses, our net revenue was nearly $24,000. This amount is what we would have expected in 2021 had we been able to have the event. And so that's our request for the ARPA recovery money. The recovery funds would go directly to help support the projects I've listed above. For instance, we typically provide $25,000 to $30,000 in scholarships to each year, depending on our funds availability and the pool of applicants that we have who seek scholarship assistance. The recovery money will put to good use for sure, most likely in the form of scholarships for deserving students. We have a well-oiled machine for process for determining students, and we see some fabulous students. That takes place in the spring of 2023, and helps for their first year of advanced education starting in the fall of 2023. So basically, we're saying, we applied for the ARPA recovery funds. They'll be put to good use. We need them, and I think it will help the community greatly and help young students trying to further their education. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Is there anybody else? Same options, same understood.
Can you disappear if I don't stay? For the record, I'm Elizabeth Steffen. I'm here because Cole sent me an email last night to come here in support of Saybrook Village Senior Housing Complex proposal before the ARPA Commission. Saybrook Village, which is located on Sheffield Street, across the street from the Board of Education building, is 65 units of senior housing rental. Our residents have suffered mightily, physically, but mostly emotionally, from the isolation of the past 2.5 years. We have a small community, 2 small community rooms that we could not use and still can't use because it's too small for our residents to meet in. Normally, we would do a clam chowder luncheon in the wintertime, and everyone would get together. We canceled it in 2020 and 2021. We did it this past spring, and we had to take the clam chowder to every apartment because we couldn't allow the residents to be together. We did a barbecue this summer. Again, the food had to be taken to the units. The residents have not been able to see their children, their grandchildren, or even in a few cases, their great-grandchildren in 2 years. When we eased our isolation standards this past August, all of a sudden, COVID reared its ugly head. We've had 8 residents who have COVID. 2 were hospitalized. 1 managed to come back. The other one, unfortunately, probably will not come back. The COVID was so violent in his body, and I think it's a man, I'm not sure. And he was quite elderly, although he may be younger than I am. We've asked for a fresh air pavilion. It would be 28 by 16 feet in the northeast corner of our property. The ARPA committee asked me to go and see if it was okay with zoning. I did so. Chris Costa gave me a site plan. We went over, we measured, we relocated it so that it was 60 feet from the upland review area, from the salt marsh, so that it doesn't interfere with high tide or even higher high tides that we're getting now. And it will not have electricity, it will not have running water, but with the warmth in our climate, if we had it right now, our residents could use it this whole weekend because it's going to be in the upper 70s. It has to be fully ADA compliant. We have residents who are visually handicapped, so we have to put in a railing system. We're going to do it by a rope rather than hard railing. The perimeter will be secure, so no one can fall off. We were originally planning on doing a nice, easy sand and wood pathway to it. And we realized with so many of our residents using walkers or electric scooters, that wouldn't work. So we have to put in a concrete walkway from the parking lot to there. The view is outstanding. It overlooks the salt marsh, the inner lighthouse, and the Connecticut River, and would be a wonderful place for these residents to again be able to meet with their children, grandchildren, and have birthday parties, whatever. All things they've been denied. And we did a cost evaluation, and $80,000 was the lowest price we could come up with and still make our residents safe. And that's our overriding plan. Our residents have to be safe. So I hope you will look on this positively.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question about that rope railing. To me, that sounds very unstable to me.
Yeah.
Well, if you put pylons embedded in concrete,
I still would think the rope would be,
all we don't want them to do is, they know their way around.
Okay.
If we find that it doesn't work, we'll go stronger. But we
all right.
hopeful that this is good enough for them.
Thank you.
Ladies got a hand.
Come on.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm Priscilla Funk. I'm a member of the Saybrook Public Health Board. And a lot of what this woman just said, really talks about what we would like to do. If granted this ARPA funding, we would like to hire, yes, we would like to hire an AP, a psychiatric AP RN for possibly 20 hours a week. We feel that the need, these seniors, low-income families have been so isolated for so long that many of them have suffered emotional and mental issues, and they haven't had the finance to pay for this. So through our town nurse, she's told us about patients that she has seen, families that she has seen during and after the crisis. So by hiring an APRN, she will be able to see patients, she'll be able to diagnose them and treat them. And through a follow-up care, we hope in the long term, we would like to set up different health, what, for lack of a better word, meetings where the elderly can come in and we could talk to them about how to better deal with their loneliness. This is also for low-income families, not just for the elderly. But I know in just going to the estuary, there are a lot of individuals out there that live alone. They said their children don't live near them, and they've really had a lot of psychiatric issues because of this. Now, our board is asking for approximately $22,000. And we would like to, with that money, we would be able to hire through the Visiting Nurse Association an APRN. A number of years ago, the visiting nurse of Southern Connecticut had a psychiatric APRN, but they lost their funding. So we would like to reinstate that in the town of Old Saybrook, just to help the folks here.
Anybody have any questions?
Anybody have any questions?
Yes, I have a question. Knowing the percentage of elderly in our community, as well as the lower income, and working in the community over the years, are you sure part-time is enough to do what you need to do? Number one. Number two, have you thought about how you can keep this going after the first year?
Well, after the first of the year, we hope to set up clinics, and with the help of possibly Tina Belmont, we would be able to set up different clinics that would help, where we would have follow-up care, and we wouldn't necessarily require an APRN. We hope after the year is up, we would be able to work on our own.
Rick, for the requested $21,000, it was actually over a 37-month program. So there
What was?
Yeah,
37.
Okay.
I had a question, when you said treat the patients, what does that mean?
Well, it means that I think the town nurse would know the needs of the individuals and would be able to talk to the APRN and set up appointments with the APRN. And the APRN has a license, so she can treat them like a psychologist can or a psychiatrist can. She can order meds. She can counsel them.
Do we have any insurance coverage for that type of?
Well, we talked about that, and they really would have to have their own insurance coverage.
Who's that? Who's they?
Well-
The patient?
No, the APRN.
The APRN?
A lot of these,
Now, would that be refundable through Medicare, Medicaid?
I don't know the answer to that.
I should be.
It should be.
It is. It is covered.
It is covered?
Yeah.
So if the patient requires that care, wouldn't that pay the bill?
Not necessarily. Seeing a mental health person, the entire balance is not covered by Medicare.
So it would pay a portion of it
Pay a
though.
portion of it,
Awesome.
possible.
When budget time comes around, I think it'd be worth revisiting this as a board.
Anybody else have any questions? I have one question. If Leanne. This
Yes,
is 20
yes.
20 hours of ARPN to be working. What's our cutoff for insurance requirements? For an employee?
For an employee. So how do we do it in youth and family? Is that kind of your question? What do we do in-house?
I don't know, how many hours can they work a week before we have to pick up health insurance and stuff?
Oh, okay, for an internal employee. That is determined by union contract, and for some unions, it's 35 hours, and then for others, it's 40 hours. So basically, they'd have to be full-time.
Okay.
So would that be considered an employee or would it be?
No, subcontract.
No,
Who being it?
subcontracted.
Subcontract,
Yeah.
so we're not really liable.
No,
No.
that's all.
For
So the person-
subcontractors, we would not pay health insurance at all.
So the person wouldn't be able to join a union and then,
No, it would be through the visiting nurse of Southern
Okay.
Connecticut. She would find the APRN.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Well,
Who else? Come on down.
I'm actually going to be speaking for the Veterans of Foreign Wars and the American Legion of Saybrook. My counterpart, Guy Francis, back there, we decided that we would do it that way because we're both kind of here for the same reason. Needless to say, we're no different than anybody else during the pandemic. It was really a tough time. We're still trying to recover. We try to do as much as we can in the community. We do have a fairly large hall that we offer up to the schools. If they ever have like, they want to have a gathering of their teams, example, football team. It's kind of hard to have a football team at your house. So we offer that up to the high schools. We try to do whatever we can in the community. And I have to say, as we're going through it now, even though technically they say the pandemic is really lessened, our rentals are not what they used to be. Our business revenue is not what it used to be. And I think everybody's seeing that. I hate to even mention that because it's not unique to us. Our main concern is what we're not being able to do for the veterans, for the organization. We are a national organization that supports all veterans and all types of what we call the unmet needs. That includes the families, That includes the veterans returning regardless of what their ailments might be. We like to feel, and we feel very strongly about putting pressure on on Congress, on the government, to make sure that they take care of the veterans, that they don't let them fall by the wayside. We have an understanding of what that entails. And at the local levels, each individual post tries to take on the responsibility of what they can do in the community to make that happen. And of course, there's funding involved. There's scholarship programs that we have. There will be an award on Veterans Day on the 11th on the green at 11 o'clock, presented by the American Legion. The VFW, we do it locally. We have a Voice of Democracy program. We have a Patriot Pen program. Voice of Democracy program can gain the student up to, they just increased to $50,000 for the first place winner. And then, of course, it goes down from there. And the Patriot Pen is a lot less. The schools in Old Saybrook is very big on veterans. I can't say enough. I've been involved with the Veterans Parade, Memorial Day Parade, ever since I've been in town, and so is the American Legion. We try to do our best to work together and keep all that, I'm trying to think of a good word, all that bickering back and forth that goes on. We try to keep it at our level so that we can kind of control it, right, guys? That's a job in itself, but we're getting there. You know, it's hard. It's the same thing everywhere. Communication, getting along and realizing that when, like you all, when we sit down at the table, just because I don't like him, we still have business to take care of. And business comes first. The veterans, the VFW, the American Legion, all those organizations, that's what's got to come first. And for us, I think this is the first time that I know of that we ever had to request funds of any kind. And what happened is we kind of depleted whatever we had just to keep the doors open as much as we could based on the COVID restrictions. We also try to offer families in need, whether they're veterans or not, if they have a loved one that they've lost and they need a place to hold a venue after the funeral, or, you know, with all the slowdown and all the burials and stuff, a lot of times it can be a year later before a family can actually get together and do something. We offer that up. We don't charge. We'll take a minor donation if they can afford it, because you're already going through enough. We feel very strongly of what we can do in the community as far as helping and supporting. We just keep our eyes open for the police. I'm sorry, Mike, I had to do that. I just had to do that. But no, all kidding aside, it's a very serious time. We are concerned, both of us are concerned with keeping the doors open, to be honest with you. And that's basically where we stand as far as our needs and our wants. Our main concern is our buildings, of course, are getting older. We had funds set aside just in case the boilers quit. We need a new roof. All that's gone. You know, just trying to get through the pandemic era without coming and asking for assistance. So that's why we're here.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
I have questions.
Go ahead.
The revenue you have coming in from the bar areas, is that adequate right now to pay for insurance and other licenses that?
To be truthfully honest with you, our revenue is less than half of what it was before the pandemic. And that's not making up a number. I am the finance quartermaster, what the VFW calls me, responsible for the funds, the money and the spending and everything else. And I can honestly sit here and say, I have never, and I've been here since 2005 in that VFW post. And I know Guy's been around as long, if not longer. I have never seen our revenue as low as it's been. We're not even, like I said, if we're taking in half of what we took in before, it would be a surprise to me, because I make the deposits every week. And when you go from, just for an example, when you go from $1,200 to $1,500 and you're down to $450, that's quite a reduction. I'm not saying it's like that every week, but it's well below what we normally take in, which cuts into what we're able to do. Because we donate to the VFW National. We have a lot of programs that we're responsible for. So that's where all that money goes.
Both the service organizations should be proud of what they do in the community based on fifties and sixties car shows, cookouts, Christmas time, Christmas parties for the kids, all kinds of things that used to go on before, you know, and hopefully with this money that probably will be coming to help establish some of those events again for the community.
And that's what we're hoping for too, because and again, in all honesty, we both of us realize that our membership is getting older. And I'm one for one. But we have members that in their 80s, their 90s, and they're not going anywhere. They can't do a lot. So we want to try and make sure that we don't forget them either. That's why we try to make it a point to recognize them on Memorial Day for that main reason. The same thing on Veterans Day. It's very hard to get the support that you need. The community is very supportive of both of us. As far as functions, they come to us, you know, for halls and those type of things. And we couldn't ask for more support when it comes to that. But again, we always try not to have to be constantly going for money. We do poppies twice a year at Stop and Shop. We would do it also in a couple of other places, but we don't have the volunteers to do that. So that cut into the revenue during the pandemic because we couldn't do it. You know, it wasn't allowed.
I'm sure the membership in your auxiliaries have dropped off a lot in the last few years. too.
Yes.
They have, they're not even.
Yeah, they're almost non-existent. Because there's no functions. You know, the days of having a men's steak night and can't even say that anymore. And an auxiliary dinner night, okay, because now it's all one, are gone. Not only at our
All social organizations that seem to feel that.
yeah, because the lack of help and support, I get a lot of support from local people. I get support from the Sea Cadets over in Groton. You see them in the parade every year. They're setting up staging and so we do get that type of support. And we just want to keep being how do I want to say it? We just want to keep being here to be able to do what we can for the community. I mean, that's our main goal. The days of a VFW being a place where veterans hang out and tell war stories are gone by the waysides. And I don't mean that to be sarcastic. I mean that there's so much more that has to be done. This is a whole different society, a whole different day and age. We're struggling trying to get the younger veterans to join. This is a national issue, and I believe you all are having the same problem. The younger folks that are coming back after 3 to 6 deployments, they've got a wife, they've got a couple of kids maybe, they're trying to buy a house, they're going to school, they're trying to get their life together. And we try to get across it, hey, we don't need you to come down and take over the post. we need you to keep the numbers strong so that when we go to Washington, they listen to us. And they do listen. We sit down with the Larsons and the Courtneys and all those type of people once a year. We get to actually go in their office in Washington, DC. And that's one of the pressures we put on them. We discuss seniors, we discuss veterans, because that's where the focus should be.
Thank you.
I hope that answered. I'm sorry. I get long-winded sometimes.
No way.
Now, maybe,
Does anybody have any questions?
No, just for the record, we don't like them either, so don't worry about it.
that's funny. I heard him ask somebody else if he liked somebody.
Thank you for your past service.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your service.
You're quite welcome.
Anybody else? Yeah, when I asked if folks could stand, I can't see all of you behind each other. So, yeah, good, perfect, okay, good.
My name is Tony Chiarello. I'm the CEO of the Valley Shore YMCA, representing Y. We put in a recovery request for ARPA funds for our after-school program at Goodwin Elementary School. During the pandemic, we had to shut down. Obviously, we had shut down our programs, and we're currently operating at with 36% less enrollment than we were prior to the pandemic, and staff wages are just increasing every few months. And so our request is really to fully fund our program to make sure that we can keep costs low for families, for working families, so that we don't have to, so they don't have to incur all the costs of, of the staff wages and the increase of that, and the fact that the enrollment is low. So the way that after school program works is that the more children we have, the more people buying into it, the more that can kind of spread out. But since enrollment's so low, when we used to pay staff $13 an hour to work there, but now we're paying them $20 an hour, it starts to spread out the pain a little bit. We also had to let go of all of our directors during the pandemic. We used the state aid that came from the OEC, the Office of Early Childhood Ed, to bring back our director to help fortify some of that. But those funds have all since been depleted. And so we're faced with asking for some help so that we can maintain this program and we can hopefully get through 2024, where we think that our enrollment will be recovered enough to be sustainable once again.
Any questions?
Good question.
Sure.
How's the solar panels doing?
They're great. I mean, that couldn't come at a better time for us at the Y right now. So the YMCA is 100% solar powered right now. Yeah.
That's amazing,
It's
you
great.
go by a highway, you see the solar panels, and unless you know somebody, where the electricity is going to the Y.
Yeah. So we're
That's
providing
good.
energy back to the grid.
Yeah.
So.
I go by sometimes, 5, 6 o'clock at night, and that parking lot is full.
Mhm.
So whatever attendance you have right now, you're lucky to have, so thank goodness.
Absolutely. And the Y as a whole is still recovering as well. We're still only at 84% of where we were pre-pandemic as well. And we're still bringing back staff and it's just, we're rebuilding. So we're in a very good spot, but we're still not fully there yet.
You're fully on solar?
Yes, 100% of our power
Okay.
is generated by solar.
You're not using the DG, the generator?
Nope.
No,
Nope. Yeah.
has that been totally disconnected or?
Yes, it has.
It has,
Yeah.
okay.
Good feel.
Will any of this funding go towards potentially creating early childhood aftercare programs for pre-K?
So that's some of the discussions we're having. So in order to take on a project like that, we need to rebuild some infrastructure, bringing on a childcare coordinator. So some of these funds would be to help fund the childcare coordinator, so we can take on more projects such as that. Also bring back some vacation day programming. So when there's the break between Christmas and New Year's and things like that. Providing opportunities for folks to do that. So we have to rebuild our infrastructure a little bit too. And so that's part of this would be going towards a coordinator to help with that. But we are in discussions with them, with the school system about that, especially for the summer months, doing a pre-K summer camp program.
I think it's also pretty important during the school year,
Mhm.
especially as pre-K becomes free.
Yeah, and the challenge with pre-K, to tell you the truth, is that it's a different license, and so we run licensed programming, and so that's like a whole nother, again, that's almost like another full-time job, is to kind of get somebody.
Oh, I agree. I've talked to Sue about it many times.
Yes, yeah,
So
yeah.
I understand it's a challenge.
Yeah, but Brittany Bruno and I, our youth development director, we are working with them, and we would like to get to that point. But staffing is becoming a significant issue.
Yeah.
And that's not just with us here, that's a statewide, nationwide issue. There was articles in the papers 2 weeks ago about the crisis that we're facing with childcare, and so we are trying to address that.
Are you going to other towns for funding for their art programs as well?
We are, yep, but each town is specific for that school site. So this was traditionally our largest program, and so we had about 60 kids in it pre-pandemic in the afternoon, and now we're just under 30 kids, and so we're this is a larger ask, but we have gotten funds from Clinton to run a program, and special they restricted that to the summer camp program. So we ran a summer camp for them for the last 2 years. We're seeking funds from Chester right now to bring back their program. Their program is not even open because we can't find enough kids to open it to pay for itself. And the Y's just not in a space right now to open up programs at a loss. And so we need to break even to even consider opening a program.
Is it due to parents working from home that's depleting your?
We think that we're hearing a lot about the cost of the program is, and so it's a little bit of both. And so what's someone asked us this when I was at a hearing or a meeting last week, and our true competition is people are weighing out, is it worthwhile sending my child to aftercare, or is it worthwhile staying home and not working? And so that's really the challenge right now because the expenses are getting great. So we think that's a little bit of both. We think that there's some folks that are saying, okay, I can work from home, I don't need it. And then there are those folks that are just like, I'm netting $20 if I send my child to this program a week, so why would I do that? And so we're trying to keep our costs low. And then we're trying to make sure that it's enriching. And so there are folks that send their kids and they don't need to because they're like, my kids need to do something else outside of school and get off a screen and be with their peers. And so.
I have 2 kids that go to the good one and they love it.
Oh,
And
great.
your staff right now is amazing there. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Well, one person online.
Oh, is there one? Does anybody know how to work that then?
Yep.
Yes, I do. They're being promoted.
My teenagers aren't here with me. So I mean,
Yeah. Larry is the man behind the curtain, so he has promoted her to give her the opportunity. So she may be able to speak at this point. Sue, are you ready?
I am. I'm trying to get my video. There I go. Yeah, so I am the social services coordinator for the town of Old Saybrook. And I wanted to just kind of give you a very brief overview. I know that you have a lot to cover in this meeting, and I wanted to make sure that you just knew I was available if you had any questions on the social services proposal for the ARPA funds. It looks like a large number. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to make sure that I had a chance to speak tonight. But what's also a large number is how many folks in Old Saybrook, and this is coming from the state of Connecticut stats, are on social services programs right now currently. And that number is 2,217. And that was the last update as of May 1st. It has been doing nothing but growing. And it has grown substantially in the past 2 years during COVID, shockingly so. And I often get, asked the question about sustainability. If I get this money, how am I going to help people? And then, what happens after that? And to that, I just want to make sure that you all know that what's not sustainable is the numbers we have right now. And my goal with these funding is to get people back on track and to help them out so that these numbers can go down. I'm going to measure the success of the program that I'm doing by the numbers going down on those state statistics, which I fully expect to happen. The money is broken up over several categories. And just a brief rundown of that is $40,000 for food, $15,000 for home repairs and modifications that were necessary due to COVID issues like coming back in a wheelchair. So our police department doesn't have to carry someone in and out. Computers and internet connections. I also had put one in the community room of the senior housing during COVID so that they could do their medical appointments and sign up for their vaccines and that sort of thing, and also have some family connection. I also have some funding in there, $30,000 per year for an independent contractor, not a town employee, no benefits, nothing to worry about there, to be able to help implement some of these programs, because I have 37 and a half hours in the week. And as you can see by that number, it is, we're swamped. We were actually 35 phone calls behind yesterday. And we are going as fast as we can. The calls were coming in very quickly, mostly due to the oil prices and the impending heating issue that's coming up, as well as food prices. And we're also getting a lot of calls for housing help. So I've got 47,000 in there for housing assistance. And that looks like folks that are calling up and saying, hey, my landlord raised their rent, or they sold the property. They've increased the rent because of that. The real estate market had jumped in Old Saybrook. And these folks are having difficulties with evictions. They might be somebody who lost their job, or even currently is not working for a week due to getting reinfected. They don't have sick time and that sort of thing in the types of jobs a lot of my folks have. So getting behind and getting further behind and further behind has been a huge problem for folks. I also have 25,000 in there. And that's spread over a couple of years. What I'm trying to do there for job fairs and employment support is I've already contacted the state of Connecticut Workforce Alliance, and we already have a preliminary plan for a job fair here in Old Saybrook by May. I'll work with the economic development and community members, and we want to get people back to work. That will be a major focus. Because if they can't sustain themselves moving forward, that's going to be a problem. Employment support also looks like smaller things too, like a guy who came to me and said, hey, I can get a construction job tomorrow. I've got to show up on the site ready to work. I don't have steel toe boots, so there's a lot of small things that go into that as well as the larger picture. I also put 40,000 in there for the heat program. I think everyone's pretty well aware of what's going on with that this year in terms of oil prices. If you haven't bought any oil yet, get ready to be shocked because it's very high. Electricity is going, all of it's gone up, natural gas as well. Again, that's to be spread over 2 years. The heat committee folks were unable to do their fundraisers also. We relied on spaghetti dinners and that sort of thing. So we haven't had any funding going on during COVID at all. We are very low on funding, and I am getting probably 3 or 4 calls a day already, mostly from elderly people starting to get cold, and also from folks that we've never heard from before, literally panicking because they filled up the tank for the first time and are realizing that they can't keep doing this all year, and they're not sure how they're going to handle it. So that, just to break it down for you, like I said, and give you an overview, it seems like a lot of money, but it really only boils down to $111.41 per person on that list. I'm going to be doing this with other, marrying this to other state programs. I've also been going after other grants. I'm working as hard and as fast as I can. And again, my goal is to not be giving handouts, but to be giving hand ups and getting these folks back off of the state programs so that we do have sustainable numbers moving forward.
Any questions? Just, we don't have a breakdown of the money, and we just have a lump sum figure. So what I would like to ask you, is there anything in your budget for this amount of money that is going to entail you're hiring more employees?
No, there is an amount in here for hiring an independent contractor.
Yes, you did mention that.
Yes.
I'm just wondering.
Nope, it
Yeah.
is strictly put in there as an independent contractor. There is nothing in this proposal that is aimed at increasing my budget. I mean, obviously, I could come to you and make quite a good case for increasing my budget, as I could have from these past couple of years. I have tried mightily to not do that, and I do believe with the ability to get these ARPA funds, that I will have the ability to get these numbers back down so that I won't have to be coming to you and asking you for more money and more help or more employees. I'm working like a hamster on a wheel, and I'm willing to do it, and I believe we can get it done.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Sue, is the number of people in Old Saybrook, it comes to about 21% of the population. Is that pretty much what it is up and down the coast?
Yeah, pretty much. Old Saybrook probably has a little higher number, with the exception of Clinton. Clinton probably has a little higher percentage than we do. But generally, that's pretty much across the board. What has happened is the state numbers have inclined. And, you know, I could send you that link if you wanted to. You can go on the state's website for the Department of Social Services, and they have a, just gonna hold it up. But this is the report for Old Saybrook, and it breaks it down demographically and with different programs, et cetera. But any town, all the 169 towns in Connecticut are on there. And I did take a quick look at them, because when you see numbers like that, you know, I ask myself that question too. Hey, what's going on? Is this something happening here? But unfortunately, I'm seeing numbers like that pretty much everywhere, and Clinton's were higher.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Thanks so much. I'm the executive director of Hope Partnership,
And your name?
Carla Lindquist. And I'm new to the organization. I started on August 1st, so it's possible that some of you are in many ways more familiar with our original development than I am. But I'm just here to give a little more context about Hope's request. So, you know, only 1% of ARPA funding has been designated for housing, for affordable housing so far in Connecticut. And, you know, I think we have seen a very intense need that has only increased with the wild and crazy residential real estate market over the past 2 years. We get calls weekly to our office about folks looking for housing. The funding that we applied for is a little bit just to support the organization continuing on. I'm the only staff member. We are very bare bones. We don't have any fancy frills. And in order to do the work that we do, we need at least one person in the seat. But beyond that, and this was in the application, but it didn't make it onto the notes, we did have a loss during the time frame that this ARPA funding is covering of about half what we're requesting from revenue, specifically from Ferry Crossing, not across all of our properties, but specifically here in Old Saybrook. So in order for us to look to the future and expand and be able to look to our next project, we need to be able to keep the organization going. And one way to do that is to take distributions, very moderate distributions from each of our projects, but we don't yet have the critical mass of projects to make that happen. And so each project that we finish gets us closer to sustainability as an organization, completely free from any external funding sources, but we're not yet at that point. So that's why we're here in front of you tonight. So, of course.
Pardon my ignorance, but in
Sure.
1 or 2 sentences, could you explain what your group does?
Absolutely. So Hope was actually founded here in Old Saybrook, and we do affordable housing. We went from just an advocacy organization, but now we also develop affordable housing. We're still local, nonprofit. We just focus on the region and small towns. We have 33 units 16 of which are here in Old Saybrook. The 17 are in Centerbrook, and then we're also a partner on a development that's opening in Madison next year. Well, breaking ground, opening down the road.
How the contractors.
Obviously, you know about labor and construction costs right now, so.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Anybody else?
I have a question. You said your revenues were down from Berry Road. Were you affected by the no eviction issue that occurred in the state and the federal government?
So to be honest with you, affordable housing doesn't really do a lot of eviction anyway. So that wasn't really a factor for us. And to be honest, this was prior to my joining the organization, so I don't know the full details of what resulted in the revenue loss, but it was, you know, $12,000, which is substantial to an organization like ours where, you know, we, like I said before, it's not fancy, it's just me. So
Thank you.
yeah, of course.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we did have Brittany Eckert with her hand up, but I don't know, and is now down, so I don't know whether she's.
Brittany, can you hear us? Do you wish to speak? I guess not. Is there anybody else? Come on up.
Good evening. I'm Dave Prendergast. I'm chairman of the Old Saybrook Economic Development Commission. And I'd like to speak in favor of our, you look familiar.
Were you up in New Britain?
Absolutely.
Yes, I felt that right.
I know.
We worked together. in the past.
Yep, I was with the Economic Development Corporation. You were on the council.
Yeah. I heard when I heard your name.
I've been around. I'd just like to say a few words about our proposal. We're intending to try and create some economic stimulus for the commercial and retail community of Old Saybrook. They, like many others, have suffered through the pandemic and the loss of traffic in their stores, loss of traffic in commercial areas of town. And we're looking at a 3-year program with our application that would create different activities. One example perhaps is the Starlight Festival that we created last year, and it with a number of local community and municipal departments in throwing activities, and we're currently already working on that for a 2nd year schedule for this December 5th. We see that a need for creating things that draw traffic to the downtown and commercial area. We also want to look through and identify areas where we can recruit additional business. We talked about things like the Marines in town and how we can utilize activities to draw them to the downtown area. Also, we're looking at a possibility of some additional marketing, maybe cooperative marketing with businesses in town or businesses in other parts of the town to work together to draw those activities. We're also the Connecticut Main Street program has been a fairly successful program that's been operating now well over 20 years. And they have a cadre of information, videos, programs that we think we might be able to partake of from some of these funds in this to get more ideas on how to bring more economic growth to the community and more stimulus to our businesses. My executive director, Jennifer Donahue, is with me here, and she wrote the application. If you have any specific questions, you might want to direct them to her, but we're happy to answer whatever we can.
Does anybody have any questions?
Are any of this funding any projects that might be controversial to neighborhoods or to public residents?
I'm not aware. I'm not aware of any, Jennifer.
I don't think so. I mean, we're very much focused on, cooperative marketing efforts, placemaking, event coordination, things that we can do to continue to make the town a welcoming place, a resilient place for businesses to work here. I don't see it affecting neighborhoods adversely.
Thanks.
Anybody else?
Good question.
Okay.
There seems to be like two agencies in the town, economic development and another agency seem to have parallel paths in the town, like the Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development.
Well, the chamber is a membership organization and that represents their membership and they run programs specifically for their members. I think the number we talked about was something like 40% of the businesses are members of that.
40% of the Main Street businesses are members of the chamber, but you know, they only have a small percentage of the actual total business community. And as the Economic Development Commission, we don't just represent a group of members, we represent all businesses in the town and their interests.
So economic development represents all the businesses in the community.
That's correct.
And any future businesses that the economic development will try to bring into the community.
Yes, we provide through our office a service for those people that are looking for locations in town to open a business or to expand the business and so forth. And that's part of our services to the community.
And as part of economic development, the program where you're driving down the highway and on your Google device, it says something about Old Saybrook.
I'm not sure exactly what you.
In other words, there was some advertising that economic development, I think, purchased previously, so that they'd be able to be visible from 95 on your cell phone if you're looking for a restaurant to come to or something like that. The previous economic development coordinator, I think, talked about that in a year or two before.
Yeah, I think that's part of our social media.
Yeah, right, social media.
Yeah.
That's good. No other questions?
Yes, it's geofencing.
No. Tom, that's when you're a passenger, right? Now while you're driving.
Usually in the back seat. of the car.
Make sure the public record is good.
Is your organization also involved in the Saybrook program?
We cooperate with the chamber. That's a chamber program, but we do cooperate with them. We try to encourage businesses around the community to use that, so they're reinvesting their dollars in the community. It's as good as money yet where the participating merchants.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Anybody else wish to speak? Anybody else wish to speak? Anybody else wish to speak? Seeing none, we will move on to the appropriation requests.
Okay. I'll try to be quick. I know it's a long meeting tonight. I think that we talked about all of these. What we're asking for tonight is for the Board of Finance to approve the appropriations for 3 grants that are potentially reimbursable. One is for STEEP for $500,000 for the sidewalk project. The other is a legislative earmark for $500,000 for phase 2 of the Main Street connection. And then finally, the last one is another legislative earmark for $769,000 for another continuation of the sidewalk project. I know the first selectman has discussed these in detail, and he also said that we were going to be coming back this month to seek your approval for reimbursement grants. We do know that the first one, the Small Town Economic Assistance Grant, is in fact reimbursable. So we do need a motion so that we can appropriate those funds and get reimbursed after the fact. And we do believe we have received some paperwork on the last one, the 769,000. We're pretty sure that is in fact reimbursable. And we don't know if the second one is going to be reimbursable or not. However, in order to keep the gears running in our projects moving ahead, we want to request approval for all three as reimbursable grants. If they give us the money up front, no harm, that's fine. And if they don't, then we certainly would need to seek your approval. So we'd like to do it all at once and get approval for these three grants as reimbursable grants.
Okay, we went over these pretty extensively at the last meeting, so I would just call for somebody to make the motions.
I'll make the motion. Based upon the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen to appropriate 500,000 for small town economic assistance program reimbursable grant for the purpose of completing sidewalk work from Old Boston Post Road, Old Post Road to the Westbrook Town line. Further, to move this action to the town meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is passed. Can I have a motion on the second item?
Based upon the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen to approve 500,000 for a legislature earmarked for the purposes of making improvements on phase 2 of the Main Street Connections Park. Furthermore, to move this action to town meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion, any discussion? Hearing none or seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This motion also passes. Can I have the final?
Based upon the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen to appropriate $769,500 for legislator earmark, which is a grant and aid funding for the purpose of completing sidewalk work from Old Saybrook Post Road, it's really Old Post Road, excuse me, to the Westbrook Town line. Further move this action to town meeting.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The motion is passed. The next item. Do you want to change?
Now, I'd like to make a recommendation to change number 8 to be before 7 for the town school camera system, because I believe the number 7 will be pretty lengthy. Just doing one item at a time.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so we will take up item number 8. The town school camera system upgrade appropriation request.
Why it's always that way?
Jen's not online, right?
That's-
She is. Oh, she is? Okay, is she gonna?
So this, I guess, you want me to go, Jan, you want to talk? Well, if you're driving.
And.
Jail vets. Okay, so as the Board of Finance is aware, the town of Old Saybrook and the public school district enjoy a cooperative relationship with respect to closed circuit television camera monitoring systems. And we have very separate and distinct uses of those. There's an incredibly large non-computer firewall, if you will, between the two, and that the school district is the custodian of their video, and the police department serves as the custodian of the video for cameras located at the Department of Police Services, the town hall, Parks and Recreation, and that's it. So we are on a software program called Milestone, and from time to time, as with all software programs, they require upgrades. If we, Board of Education and the town of Old Saybrook, chose to do our upgrades at different times, we would no longer enjoy having the ability to communicate back and forth with each other, which I'm sure everyone understands is a necessity with respect to a response to a school during a crisis situation, so that our first responders have access to the camera systems and have situational awareness during the first few minutes of a very critical response. And so we brought the issue to the first selectman, and the first selectman formed a committee that was comprised of myself and Julie Pendleton, who's seated here, the superintendent of schools, both IT directors from the school district, and of course Larry Hayden here from the town side, and myself, to take a look at this as one holistic approach for the town of Old Saybrook. And we have two different vendors. The town uses one vendor, the Board of Education uses another vendor. And we came to the table with prices, and I believe there are some folks here, I think Ricky, was actually you, that said, why don't you just go take a second look at this? And we did, and we found out that there was a lot of cost savings in going with one vendor, the Board of Education's vendor. So we're here before you tonight seeking the appropriation of $125,000, which would do the following things. One, it would upgrade the software for the Board of Education, the town hall, and the police department all at the same time. So communication between all three entities remains the way it is today. Two, it would upgrade servers at all three locations, which is required to take this latest version of software. And three, it actually adds one additional camera, a camera that is required by state statute to hang over our ballot box to monitor folks to make sure that there's no interference when people want to cast their absentee ballot.
We're not gonna go with the flak vests.
No, we're not doing that in town. That would not be allowed. And then there's roughly a $10,000 contingency within that $125,000 request. We're working in three different facilities. We have some wiring to do and a lot of IT work. And so there are things that could arise, and we certainly don't want to come back and ask for any funds. And so when the project is done, we'd be more than happy to come back to the Board of Finance and report back to you the final cost of the project and of course celebrate the project's completions. The reason why it's on your agenda tonight, thank you, Mr. Chairman, is we are very hopeful to get the matter moved to town meeting at this next town meeting when all the appropriations will be, because we expect that ordering the servers will take some time with the supply chain issue going on in the world. And this is a project that we need to get done this coming spring. So we think that if we're ordering items in November, early December, we hope to see that during spring. And obviously an optimal time to do this would be during the April break at the schools so that no systems are down while we're replacing them.
So you're saying they're all going to be connected together?
Yeah, so right now, everything is connected together. And so that's obviously extremely important. Even, you'll appreciate this, even if a fire alarm goes off at a school in the middle of the night, first thing the dispatcher does is click on the cameras and check the school. Without revealing, confidential security things, there are obviously devices in all of our public schools and the town hall that can summon the police silently. And when that happens, we have a protocol that the closest camera gets activated so the dispatcher can see what's going on and inform the first responder. So it's paramount that this entire system continue to work the way it does today, just on the current software.
I have a question, Bruce, or Leanne. Would we use ARPA funds to do this?
Are you saying, is it eligible under ARPA? Or would it?
So could we change this to be that we would possibly approve this through town funds, but then we would try to get the funds through ARPA?
I guess the only difference I would ask, given what the chief just said about timing, is whether, and Leanne, you have to help, do we need to specifically state here capital non-recurring in order for that to happen? Or if we say town funds and the ARPA fall through, could we still go to capital non-recurring without having to come back through this process?
Well, typically we state, so capital non-recurring, we have to state, because 1 penny, as you all know, 1 penny coming out of capital non-recurring, we automatically have to go to town meeting. And it, we have almost $1.3 million in capital non-recurring funds. We just put a whole, a large amount in with the end of the surplus funds. So we do have plenty of money in the capital non-recurring account. If you wanted to make a motion tonight that left both options open. I would suggest that we say, well, let me ask one quick question then, Bruce. Do you need to go back for further approval for your ARPA committee to do this?
Well, that was my concern about timing, because the answer to that is yes, we'd have to go back through the process. And our next meeting is scheduled on the 15th of November. So my suggestion, Brad, would be to leave it like this, to allow for this to be appropriate for the town meeting. And then we'll talk about it at ARPA on the 15th. If we make a change at ARPA on the 15th, we can then have that be ultimately what goes part of the ARPA package to the town meeting, because we don't have to go back through this
Right,
process.
so we could eventually get the funds from ARPA.
And you can always approve it as capital non-recurring. Then you can approve it as ARPA, and then we can come back to the Board of Finance a third time and just say, this is the pool of funds that we're going to use, and then the money wouldn't either come out of ARPA or the capital non-recurring. We'd have both on the table that we could possibly do. So I would be comfortable with that.
Just
Well, whose responsibility is it gonna be to submit an application to ARPA then?
We can have her.
Because this is
submit it
both
by
the
15th of
police and
November.
the school department partnering, so now they have to do it? I'm just asking the
Yeah,
process with the
yeah,
ARPA
yeah.
committee.
I would suggest maybe Leanne, we
Leanne would-
talk to Carl, maybe it would be coming from town hall.
I can talk to Carl. I mean, obviously, it's cleanest to go through the way it's presented tonight out of capital non-recurring. That way it will get done. And I know that time is of the essence with this project because there's things that are coming due. So I know that Carl and myself would want to make sure that there would be a timeliness to the use of ARPA funds. We want to get it on the meeting agenda for town meeting that's coming up in November.
Just a quick question. We still have access to some ARPA funds that haven't been appropriated yet.
About $1.3 million.
Yeah.
Can we apply for those funds for a project that we are already? Can ARPA funds be reimbursed after we've completed a project or done a project?
Say that again?
Can ARPA funds be used once we've completed a project or budgeted for a project as a reimbursement instead of an upfront cost?
Yes, we have done that. It goes back to, I think, March of 2020 that we can reimburse for.
Okay, so I guess the cleanest way would just be to approve it as it is,
Right.
with the stipulation from the Board of Finance, without putting it into the motion, the Board of Finance, that we would ask to seek reimbursement from ARPA funds for this project. With that understanding, we will go ahead and pass this tonight.
So we'll pass this motion, but do we make another motion for what you said?
No, I think that we've made our request through Leanne, and Carl will find out, she'll explain it to him. And then we go from there.
So you'll make this motion tonight. If it's approved by ARPA, then we'll make a third motion at some meeting in the future, and we'll put the money back into the capital non-recurring. That's all. It's fine.
Can I have a motion?
Wait, I got another question.
Oh, go ahead. Well, look at the motion, Laura, and then you can ask you.
I said so.
Or, no, go ahead.
We're still in questions, though.
Ask the question.
How many years is that software gonna be good for? 3 years. 3 years.
Yeah, it may not be needing
May not be
this
needed.
type of upgrade again. Usually they come out with smaller upgrades along the way. We've had this software for how long?
Forever, and this is
We've
the
had it
first
for-
time we've had to
We've had it for
do anything this monumental.
8 or 9 years now. You know, we've been using it for a long time.
Now, the other thing is I took a lot of heat at the last meeting because I made the suggestion that the school and the police department be on the same, and the town hall. Larry, you still there? On the same system for the signs for emergency purposes. And that got shot down. Now, here we are doing the exact same thing, but for the cameras. So I just want to point that out to Board of Finance. So we'll revisit those signs at some point. That we're doing this.
No,
Do you agree with those signs being all together, Chief? or no?
Oh, yeah, I mean, so we use those, think about pre-hurricane or pre-blizzard that, the season we're going into. We have the ability under the agreement with the municipal signs and the school so we have an amber alert, quite frankly, or a silver alert. We can get on those signs. It would be nice if it was one control that you made one thing and everything displayed something in an emergency.
That's what I was getting at.
And we do have this, I think the signs are all from the same vendor, so I think that is certainly achievable.
That makes complete sense.
Emergency management, right? Think of it for the future, because I think it's the right thing to do.
Great sense.
I have a question. Julie, the vendor that you're using now is gonna be the same vendor that the town and the Board of Education go to after you get this money, correct?
So my understanding, and please jump in, is that the vendor, we get a deeper discount as a Board of Education. So we will buy the package and the town, I believe, your department's going to use their vendor to install theirs. We'll use our vendor to install ours.
So your vendor's gonna install everything.
Oh, he is now?
Yeah, and we
Okay.
might keep ours to do some maintenance.
Future work, okay. So
That'll be
that,
the vendor you stay with for the next 3 years or whatever.
yeah,
Okay.
he's been our vendor all along and has done a great job. So he lives in town as well, so
That's good.
it's a nice feature to add. He's a town resident.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion for second.
You want to just read the motion?
To appropriate $125,000 from the capital non-recurring fund to a newly created fund entitled Town Camera System. Further to move the request to the town meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion or question? He might have some more.
Oh, you left me by second, then you're Ricky beat me. No.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion is passed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, now we will go back, only in government can 7 and 8. Simple motion change 7 and 8. Now we will go back to 7. This is, yes.
Paul,
I just need- I just-
Paul, do you mind if I kind of open up this conversation
No, be my guest.
and then we can begin?
Just for, we have to individually,
Right.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah, I got it. So, for those of you who don't know, Brad and I serve on the ARPA committee, and so we have had the great opportunity to review this, but you may not know kind of what our process was to get to where we are tonight. And so very quickly, the first selectman and the board of selectmen kind of brought 8 of the Old Saybrook citizens together to really take a look at the ARPA, the availability of ARPA funds, and make recommendations to the board of selectmen around the use of those ARPA funds. So we had a series of public meetings through the spring where we heard a number of COVID-related issues. If you remember, ARPA is very specifically directed to assisting the impact of COVID. Hearing those, we then solicited applications. We got over 40 applications from all throughout town, and spent the last 2 months reviewing those applications and ultimately coming up with a list that you have here. One of the things that I wanted to note was that there are groups in my mind, buckets of applications in certain areas. For instance, we heard tonight from Veterans of Foreign Wars, American Legion. There's a number of organizations that get by fundraising. And so we took those applications and tried to apply kind of a consistent approach for, even though the amount they asked for was all over the lot, we wanted to look at what was the impact of COVID during their kind of fundraising year, whether that was a 2020 year or 2021 year, depending on which year they were choosing. And so what you see tonight in a number of these is not what the organization originally asked for, but it is consistently across the board, where what we did was say, okay, working with that organization, here is what the loss was in 2020 due to COVID from your fundraising loss. And so this is the reimbursement in effect that we will do in order to make you whole. So that's how we came up with some of the numbers that we have here tonight. It was really focused on COVID impact, focused on trying to get organizations kind of out of the negative and at least to zero, so that we heard from a couple of the organizations, they can now move forward and better. So that's that's just a preamble I wanted to give people kind of a sense of what it was we were trying to do. And if you'd like, we can either there's a number of projects that we did not have speakers come to, and I could, as we go through each of the motions, I could talk a little bit, give a little bit of context or flavor to those particular ones, or we could just move them forward depending on the will of the committee and the chair.
Okay. Can I have a motion on the first item?
Bruce, why don't you do it?
Sure. To appropriate $100,000 to the Economic Development Department for the purpose of development, marketing, and promotion plan focusing on creating seasonal events to attract people to Old Saybrook small businesses, entertainment attractions, restaurants, and further move this approval to town meeting.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The money for the Economic Development Department has passed. Somebody do the second one.
To appropriate $2,124 to reimburse the First Church for the purchase of 4 air purifiers, and further to move this approval to town meeting.
Second.
Yeah, that seems pretty full, self-explanatory. Anybody have any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The First Church's grant has been approved and moved to town meeting. To the third one.
Third one, to appropriate $8,288 for the historic walking tour, and to further move this approval to town meeting.
Second.
Okay, all, any discussion?
Question. Bruce, who is the historic walking people?
This came from the Historical Society and Chamber. They're working together on this. They're basically taking a map that's about 20 years out of date, redoing the map, reprinting the map, and making it available to visitors to town.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? This item also has passed. Next one.
To appropriate $500,000 for the purpose of upgrading Main Street crosswalks and safer pedestrian experience, and further move this approval to town meeting.
Second.
Okay, any questions? Comment?
Yes, what are we doing?
So if you think of the currently four crosswalks that we have, I think we all recognize that they are somewhat dangerous. With the cars parked the way they are, people come out and have to kind of look around the car before they move forward on the crosswalk. And if you have been to Middletown in the last year or so, what you may have seen is they have bumped out their sidewalks. They have raised the crosswalks. And within this plan would also be in the median, not on the sidewalk, but in the median would be a blinking light, so that the driver would know that even if you didn't see the individual, the blinking light will tell you that there's a person who is ready to cross the
Is it
street.
automated or is it always blinking?
I believe it's probably something that would have to be pressed in order for that person to know. But that's the upgrade that we would be looking to do.
Any other
Turn the
questions?
light red.
Has there ever been,
No, it's a blinking,
Just a blinking
yeah,
yellow?
it was, yeah, well, or it blinking something, I don't know.
ever been a discussion about adding another crosswalk? And I know it's probably a tough spot because of the traffic light, but by the gate and the parking lot across the street.
If Carl were here, he would tell you that, yes, that has been under discussion. Now, I've heard him talk about it, but that is the level of detail that I
Okay.
know. So
I believe you talked about moving one of them down.
could be, yeah.
State only allows so many, so they have to
Yeah, well,
go.
that's a very of all the crosswalks. That's probably the worst place on Main Street. It doesn't have a crosswalk. People are constantly back and forth at night and so.
I believe this proposal does call for altering that situation there as part of it.
Right.
Good.
Are there any further questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
To appropriate $21,830 to the Public Health Nursing Board for the purpose of employing a psychiatric APRN. Further, I think we got to reword this, for the purpose of contracting for a psychiatric APRN. And further to move this approval to town meeting.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes.
Next, to appropriate $23,860 to the Rotary Club for the purpose of offsetting fundraising efforts due to fundraising efforts and losses due to COVID. Further to move this approval to town meeting.
Second. All. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved.
Next one, to appropriate $80,000 for the purpose of building a senior pavilion for seniors at Saybrook Village Senior Housing. Further to move this approval to town meeting.
Second.
Okay, we have 1 second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
Next, to appropriate $100,000 to the Valley Shore YMCA to support their after-school childcare program. Further to move this appropriation to town meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Next one, to appropriate $25,000 for the Hope Partnership to contribute to the first year salary of the new executive director. Due to the lack of fundraising from COVID, further to move this appropriation to town meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Next one, to appropriate $101,000 to Saybrook's giveaways for the purpose of injecting dollars in the Old Saybrook business community. Further to move this appropriation to town meeting.
Second.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion?
Question,
Go ahead.
Bruce, who is Saybrook?
This is a program that was run by the chamber last year, or at least within the last year. And so this would be funding that the chamber is managing as well. Of the 101,000, 75,000 of it is actually dollars that will be going directly to the businesses. $16,000 of it goes to a marketing firm, so businesses will be aware of it. And there's a small amount of administrative cost to the chamber.
So Saybrook's is run by the chamber,
Yes, this will be run by the chamber.
and so exclusively for their members, or is it for
No.
all town?
It's all over town. I think it's predominantly has been focused on Main Street, but I think it is I think all town businesses. Jennifer, do you?
So, yeah, I believe as the business, we choose to sign.
Excuse me, but we can't hear you. Could you come up and sit here, please?
Jennifer plays many roles. Jennifer Donahue, not only is she the Economic Development Director of town, she happens to also be a person who is working with with our committee. So she is well aware of all the projects.
So I'm not an expert on Saybrook, but it's my understanding that you have to choose to sign up to participate in it as a business. And right now, I believe they have about a little over 50 businesses that are signed up. And part of this proposal is to recruit more businesses to sign up, to get the word out there about it more, to market it and to grow it so that it can be a way to keep injecting dollars back into the community.
So is this a program where I think I've seen where you go into a store and make a purchase and you get a coupon and then it goes into a barrel and they pull your name out or a raffle or something?
Well, Saybrook is actually like a digital gift card service. So you can go online and you can purchase the card and you can either keep it for yourself or you can email it to somebody as a gift. And then any of the participating businesses, you can take it there and use it there.
For a financial incentive, like a
Yeah.
10% discount or something?
No, it's actually money, it's like a gift card. Yeah.
I'm Susan Esty, and I work with the chamber and with ARPA committee and everything else, but how this works is that you can buy a Saybrook for $5, $10, $25, $50. Right? You can bring it to the store will recognize that if you're a member, if they signed up for it, they can recognize that particular amount as cash. They treat it as cash, but then they return that certificate, that gift certificate to chamber and they will get cash back. So it's a way of developing a gift certificate program. I'm using quotations like that so that the customer residents of the town will buy a Saybrook. They have a list of 50+ customers to go to. And they can use it as a gift certificate for cash to buy something. And then the owner of the business returns that to the chamber, then gets reimbursed for town. And it becomes a really successful way of turning to-be customers into solid customers for the businesses. And it's a way for the businesses to feel connected to the rest of the business community.
And so, and then to further that, going to your point, Tom, is that then when that purchase gets made, then I'm not sure how the chit is, where the chit comes from, but the chit then becomes available for a raffle. So you as the individual who's made that Saybrook purchase are now in this raffle and you can get a gift card. That would be from one of the businesses. So it's one of these.
That wasn't quite clear. I wanted to bring that out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The next one,
To appropriate $247,000 to Old Saybrook Social Services to assist residents that have been adversely affected by COVID. Further to move this appropriation to town meeting.
So moved. Second.
okay, any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The Saybrook Social Services has passed.
Next one, to appropriate $14,000 to the Connecticut Cancer Foundation to offset fundraising losses due to COVID. Further to move this appropriation to town meeting.
Second. Question.
Go ahead.
Has that legal fight ended with that organization? I mean, I don't want to be funding a fight against ourselves. You know what I'm saying?
I don't actually know.
I mean, it's a great organization, trust me. I mean,
We based our amount to appropriate was based on information on their records, you know.
okay,
So
great, thank you.
that's why we did it.
Any further questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We have the next one.
Next one, to appropriate $36,786 to the VFW to complement the
Or IFS.
yeah. It's one, it's interesting that it says VFW here. It may well be
It should be
the,
the VFW executives.
Yes,
yeah,
VFW executives.
Yeah.
and that says provided mental health.
yeah,
Yeah, it got mixed.
All kind of thing.
Yeah. it's
so
true.
let me say it, and then Barry will have to work on, exactly how to word it, but effectively, this is the same as the ones before, so it's to appropriate $36,786 to the VFW two, for the purposes of offsetting fundraising efforts, lost due to COVID, and further to move this appropriation to town meeting.
Second.
Are there any comments, questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Okay, that also passes.
Okay.
We're getting close.
Yep, we're getting down there. To appropriate $97,270 to the Youth and Family Services to provide mental health and prevention services to school-aged youth and their families. Further to move this appropriation to town meeting.
Second.
Any questions or discussion?
Question,
Go ahead.
do you have to have school-aged children in order to receive services for the family?
Well, it's through Youth and Family Services.
Right.
So I guess the answer is no. It could be the family service part of Youth and Family Services.
So you can have a individual without children, but still be classified as a family and still receive services from Youth and Family
This
Services.
is and or.
Right. Right. Sounds fine to me. We'll change that to and/or.
And or.
Where, what did you say?
Prevention services to school-aged youth and/or their
And/or.
families.
How about or families?
Or families. Fine.
And or their families.
Yeah. that's
Well,
what I
then
got.
you're going, you're tying families in again with the children.
No,
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 and or family.
Well, you're saying or their families.
Well,
No,
youth
Goes back to
and/or
the children.
youth and/or families.
Okay, take out the there.
Yep.
Yes,
and an or.
correct.
Okay,
Got that?
very good. Yeah.
Okay, we've had a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I
Okay, next, one, to appropriate $17,200 to the American Legion to offset fundraising losses due to COVID. Further to move this appropriation to town meeting.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Next one, to appropriate $11,934 to Pure Blue Inn, I should say in there, to offset losses incurred due to mandatory shutdown due to COVID. Further to move this appropriation to town meeting.
We have a second. We have a second.
I'll second
Isn't that building torn down now?
No, that's the other one,
it. Cross street.
across the street.
Torn down with by Dibbles.
Oh,
Okay, any discussion?
How many, you said you received, this is the first round, right?
Yes,
How many applications? 40?
we received, I think, 41.
And how many were
Who's clarified?
private of the 40?
We're under a different.
Private companies.
There were probably 6 or 7 that were, what I would say, small businesses. And unfortunately, a number of those were looking for funds for expansion, not directly due to COVID losses. These were the only 2 that came in this first round that had to do with losses directly due to COVID.
Bruce, I have a question. Could you, we talked previously about this, but could you release to the rest of the members here on the board that Pure Blue is also applying under the application for their versus Pure Blue by itself?
You mean their Pure Blue is kind of doing business as from a and LLC, I think is what Tom is saying, and the,
What's the registered name? In
Yeah.
other words, for the state.
I am.
I previously asked Bruce about that because Pure Blue I couldn't find with the Secretary of State.
The registered name is, and I'll probably butcher this, is Odedra Brothers LLC, ODEDRA Brothers LLC.
So shouldn't it be written to that name due to the fact that Pure Blue doesn't appear in the Secretary of State?
Maybe what we could say, yeah, I think we should, because I don't know whether Odedra Brothers LLC has other entities associated with it. So maybe we should have Pure Blue in and Odedra Brothers.
Or would it be Pure Blue, or whatever you call it, DBA?
Yeah,
It's Pure Blue?
yeah. I think we could do it that way.
What's the name you said? So
Odedra, ODEDRA Brothers LLC.
And Bruce, when they make this application, they sign a form saying that they're in complete compliance with all the state regulations and
Yep.
filings.
Yeah, and that they are in good stead with the state of Connecticut.
Okay, very good.
Okay, we've had a motion and a second. Are there any other questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. And finally,
Right, last but not least is to appropriate $22,000 to the Himalaya Cafe. And so for the purposes of the discussion we just had, they also are working under an LLC. So let's put this together.
can you spell that other name for me, please?
The last one,
Oh, yes, or whatever you
Yeah.
call it.
ODEDRA was the last one. Now, this one for the Himalaya Cafe is, this is even harder. So I'm gonna spell it. It's AUM, then Somnath, SOMNATH LLC, Somnath LLC.
Now, did anybody check to see if they got PPP money?
They said in their application that they received $11,000. And, right,
And that was
oh,
taken,
I'm sorry, I didn't finish this. So anyway,
was that taken in consideration? I guess I'll finish the motion and I'll
Yeah.
ask the question.
so the motion was and is to appropriate $22,000 to the Himalaya Cafe, or should we say, who's doing business as? Is it on Somnath LLC, doing business as Himalaya Cafe to offset losses incurred due to COVID? Further move this appropriation to town meeting.
do we have a second? I'll make a second, so it's on the floor.
Okay,
Are there any further questions?
I had a question.
Go ahead.
Leanne, who would the check be written out to?
The check would probably be written out to, I can't pronounce that, someone at LLC. It would be written out to them for the
They fill
Himalaya
out the
Cafe.
W-9?
Yes, so there's an application process that not only gets information on why they want to ask for funds for COVID-related reasons, but also how we're going to be processing these things. They have an application that they have to sign. They have to sign a document that says that they're going to abide by all of the terms and conditions of this program, which means, state, federal laws, et cetera, everything that has to do with COVID. And we have to keep track of all of this information and save it for when we do our reporting on an annual basis. So there's a lot of I's dotted and T's crossed in the back office portion of this, including getting a W-9 from all of these folks, signing the agreements, and then we release the checks. So we get a lot of information before we do release the checks to these folks.
Thank you.
How many other restaurants applied in the 40?
Restaurants, this was the only restaurant.
Really?
Yes.
Most of them got PPP money.
Any further questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you for reading all of this.
It's a pleasure. Thank you all for doing it. And I have to say, the committee has worked hard to get us here, and I'm delighted and appreciate the support of this from moving forward.
When will the next round of this happen?
We are.
Planning a vacation.
When we meet on the 15th, we will be discussing what phase two is going to look like, and then we'll be putting that information.
With the application process for phase two, no one's applied yet.
Yeah.
Now, of the 40 that applied, what if they weren't on this list? Are they
They're-
automatically put around?
Well, there's a number of those that were denied because they were not directly COVID related, and so they have been explored. There's 3 that were still in discussion. We've asked for information before we act in order to give us a better sense of what the COVID impact has been. And we may or may not get that information. If we don't get it by the 15th, then they can always come in phase 2.
All right, so,
Go ahead, you said you had a question.
Leanne, I got a question for you. Last time we appropriated, $5,106.38 from the capital non-recurrent fund for the digital site upgrades.
Right.
Could we go back and get that from ARPA funds? Because it was related to, an upgrade to the town.
Communications.
Yeah,
I,
and
I
then-
would think it's similar to the cameras. I don't see why they, I mean, obviously that's for the committee to make sure that it does meet the criteria, but I mean, on the face of it, I would think it does.
And the other question I had is, the gazebo out front, we had that $20,000 worth of electrical work, and I believe the gazebo was approved through that.
No, the gazebo is not through ARPA. The
No,
gazebo is
No, that was separate.
Gazebo was $60,000, and that was passed as part of the 2024 named projects in the budget. And then the additional 20,000 that passed was additional funds that obviously you passed at last meeting.
All right, so then, could I request that we try to put that through ARPA also?
I think it would, it's an outdoor space. It probably meets the criteria of ARPA as well. So that has to go back to the ARPA committee for that. I mean, but I think that if there's a case to be made that might go through as well.
All right, great.
If we're gonna talk about the digital signs and putting that through ARPA too, I mean.
Let's add one to the Westbrook line and get.
100%, right, at 166, if we're gonna do that, let's do it now, do it right. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of development over there for the next 2 years. So I don't know who we would discuss that with. but-
I think that was what we would look for the town to bring to the ARPA committee.
So
Should we,
That's how-
the town would have to make that proposal.
yeah, Larry'd have to come back after it again.
So I will mention these 3 programs to Carl, and I will ask him to bring them up to the ARPA committee for the next meeting. And then do you want me to ask on the electric signs for the $5,000, you want another sign at the other end of town for consideration, correct?
And tying them together.
All right, I'll mention that.
Good.
Thank you, Leanne.
We're saving that account.
Yeah.
Did you want to say something?
I think nobody's left. This one's on the floor. You've got it. You're always there. Okay, I'd like to have the Board of Finance give special thanks to Bruce and Brad for the extra time that they put into this activity. Because I'm sure it wasn't easy, and there's a lot of more hours dedicated to it than we actually see here. So thank you both.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
No selectmen, so no selectmen report.
Thank God.
Could you
Did I say that?
put that comment in the minutes?
Larry can do that.
Voting no on the minutes unless that's in there.
Any liaison reports?
No.
Okay, I attended the Board of Police Commissioners meeting The takeaway from that was we had a presentation by the new drug sniffing dog.
Find the dog.
They caught you, huh?
Yeah, they didn't tell anybody that they were gonna have the dog go around the rooms. It's a good thing, it's a good thing some of us were clean.
Some of us.
Some of us.
Can I do alcohol too?
No, actually, it doesn't, I don't think, the way
No.
they explained it, because the dogs have to be trained specifically. And this dog, even though it's a dog, can't do marijuana. This dog can only do opioid type drugs,
That's good.
so.
That's the biggest problem.
So anyway, and the other important thing, they were still working on their bylaws changes, they had a discussion on that. So, moving on, comments from board members, does any member have a comment? Does the clerk have anything she wants to say?
She already said it.
She already said it. Are there any more comments from the public?
Motion to adjourn.
Wait a minute, wait a minute. Are there any more comments from the public? Seeing none. Comments from the chair, none. Motion to adjourn.
Come on.
All those in favor? All right, we'll stand adjourned.